Hello everyone, welcome along to the Billy Slater Podcast. Plenty for us to get through today. The Sharks on top of the NRL ladder and Nicho Hynes leading the race for the Dally M. Luke Keary to announce his retirement from the game at the end of the season. The debate rages on whether to ban the long kickoff. And Benji Marshall building a nice roster for next year at the West Tigers. Let's welcome the league legend, Queensland coach, and our resident good bloke Billy Slater, fresh from a big weekend. Billy, hello to you.
Good morning, Mark Levy. How are you? It's a bit to get through, isn't there?
Oh, isn't there? What a great weekend it was. Huge crowds, Anzac commemorations prior to each and every game. I know we touched on it last week, Billy, but aside from the footy, I thought it was really special, and the silence was deafening through the minute silence prior to each game over the weekend.
Yeah, we get a lot right in this game, and this weekend is no different. I think we acknowledge our part we play in Anzac Day, and giving the respect that the day and the people who have fought for our country and continue to fight for our country, the right respect. And at the end of the day, we create the entertainment for the day. Obviously the dawn service starts Anzac Day, and it's all about the memory and the Anzac spirit and acknowledging and giving thanks to that. But then we move towards the afternoon and we get an opportunity and a great honour and a privilege to create the entertainment for what is a very important day for our country. Also the New Zealand side of our country as well. So it was great to see the New Zealand Warriors playing on Anzac Day. I've been fortunate enough to play on Anzac Day against the New Zealand Warriors in the past, and it is really good to acknowledge their part that they play as a country on Anzac Day as well, because they were very important to the team that they forged with Australia back all those years ago.
Yeah, well said, Bill, well said. Bit of breaking news as we record this podcast today. Luke Keary set to announce his retirement from the game. He's had these battles with concussion. He copped another heavy knock on Anzac Day. For a little fella, he's forged a great career, hasn't he, Bill?
Yeah, and it's obviously been going through his mind for a long time. He's obviously sat down with his loved ones and the people close to him, the people that he sees as their opinions are important, and he's come up with this decision. He only just re-signed earlier in this year for next year, so to actually turn around and go, no, this is the time for me. He's obviously thought about that for a period of time, and I think it's great. You know, the fact that he's come off a great performance, he's playing well, and he's decided that this is the time for me to move on. He has gone through his issues with concussion and injuries in the past, and he's decided that, you know, this is the time for me. He's nice and healthy. He's playing good footy, and he's in a team that are going to push for the premiership. So to get it out of the road and announced right now after round 8, I think it's a good move if that's what he wants to do.
Absolutely, and I won't pinch one of our listeners' questions today, but it relates to Dale Finucane, a former teammate of yours. So we'll have a chat about Dale and his career later in the podcast as well. While we're talking about concussion, Billy, there's a debate on at the moment about the long kickoff. And we love it in rugby league, the front rowers or whatever player bringing it back from the kickoff, charging into that hit line. But we saw on Anzac Day the dangers with that. Moses Sully, he suffered a heavy concussion, failed his HIA, was ruled out. The NRL under a bit more pressure to do more with it. Some of the coaches concede we might see the end of the long kickoff. What's your view as a former player, now commentator of the game, in relation to those long kickoffs? Do they still have a place in the game or not?
Yeah, look, unfortunately that the Moses Sully incident isn't a one-off, and that's why the discussion is worthy, and we need to acknowledge that, and we need to consider the future of that part of the game. Look, I love the kickoff. I love rugby league. I love what our game brings, and it's important to have a balanced decision around these sort of discussions. But at the end of the day, it is creating a lot of injuries and a lot of injuries in terms of concussions, that part of our game. So I think we'd be negligent to not consider changing. But at the same time, we need to still hold the fabric of our game and what brings the entertainment and what what our sport is about. So there is a balance to it, but I definitely think it's a worthy discussion. Whether it's at the end of the year, and the powers to be will already be all over this. I think they were at the end of last year thinking about how can we encourage short kickoffs, how can we encourage short dropouts. I look back to the Warriors, and when Paliasina used to come off the back fence off dropouts, I was fortunate that I was a fullback, and he never really got to me. But that was a scary sight, and those impacts are really high. So there needs to be some sort of discussion around it. That's for sure.
It's like the good old days of State of Origin, where players would bring the ball back from the kickoff, and the great Ray Warren would explode. Such was the collision and the moment to start a game. But I think we're all resigned to the fact that the game's going to have to move forward because of the threat of concussion and everything else. This might be a hard one to answer, and I don't know whether you've given it any thought, but I've heard lots of different scenarios on what we could do to start a game of football. I've heard the play the ball option. What about just restricting the length of the kickoff so we're not seeing players charge back, 20, 30 metres and being it? What in your view, what's the right way to head with this?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't given it serious thought, and I'd be throwing something out there right now without seriously considering the ramifications and the flow-on effect, because one thing I do understand, when you change something in our game, and it can be as small as the smallest little detail in an interpretation, the game will change somewhere else. So what you might plug a hole over here, it might release another 2 holes over there. So you've got to be careful, and you've got to really think thoroughly about the decisions you make in terms of interpretations and in terms of rule changes and all this sort of stuff. So I wouldn't be doing it any justice by throwing out ideas right now. I'd have to give it serious thought, and I think that's what needs to happen, because as soon as you change something in our game, something else will have a flow-on effect over there.
Now that's fair too, and I think this is one thing that's going to be discussed at length over the coming weeks and months until the NRL sits down at the end of the year, like you touched on. So watch this space when it comes to kickoffs. A few blowout scorelines over the weekend, Bill. South Sydney, Canberra, St George Illawarra conceded plenty of points. Is that any cause for concern as far as the competition is concerned and those individual clubs are concerned, or is this just the nature of the beast? It's going to happen from time to time.
Yeah, the concerns are around the teams that were on the receiving end of those hefty score lines. Look, I think it was just a matter of, there was a couple of teams that are in great form at the moment, with great players in their team that can score plenty of points, up against some teams that aren't in some form, with some injury concerns. You look at the Canberra Raiders. They've got a whole heap of experience on the sideline, and they didn't actually even start the season, with a really strong, experienced side. So when you get a couple of those experienced players on the sideline, you have to put some young rookies in there, and they just came up against a side that are in, they're the form side of the comp, the Sharks. So that was sort of, the writing was on the wall there for me. But then there's a couple of other teams that are really struggling at the moment. South Sydney, the Dragons are hot and cold. So I think it's just the way that the competition goes and the peaks and flows of your season.
You mentioned the Sharks there, Bill. They're leading the competition with a differential of plus 99. Nicho Hynes has been in great form. He leads the race for the Dally M. Early days in the season, we've only had 8 rounds of the competition. I've heard some people say over the weekend, though, that the jury's still out when it comes to the Sharks because their wins have come against teams in the bottom half of the ladder. I'd love your thoughts on that and your read on the Sharks as they stand right now.
Yeah, well, that question mark will still be there until they rectify, that at the end of the season. Until they start beating some top 4 teams and doing it at the time of the year that matters, those question marks are still there. But no one's playing better than the Sharks at the moment. And you talk about Nicho Hynes, he's leading the Dally M because he's the most influential person in that Sharks team, and his team are doing a hell of a job. His outside backs are doing a great job. Everyone knows their role. They're all in sync when they've got the football. The defending with a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm. They're really urgent in that part of the game. And that's why he's sitting at the top of the ladder, at the top of the ladder of the competition, and also at the top of the ladder of the Dally M's, because he's a highly influential player. He gets the ball more than anyone else in that team, and he's playing as good as his team is playing. So no one's playing better than the Sharks at the minute, but until they rectify those issues that have occurred in the last couple of seasons at the back end of the year, those question marks will always still be there.
I think they've got a tough few games over the next month, the Sharks. They come up against your boys, Melbourne. They've got Penrith and the Roosters, so some tough games
Great
to
test.
come over the coming weeks. Newcastle, Kalyn Ponga, he was out on the weekend and will be out for a little while. I'll get a comment off you, Billy, on the fact that he'll miss the Origin series with a Lisfranc injury. The last time you and I spoke, we were still hopeful that it wasn't anything too serious. But then on the flip side, David Armstrong, who came into that night side and filled the number one jumper of Kalyn Ponga, he was really, really good on debut.
Where there's injury, there's opportunity, isn't there? And a young man made his debut. He scored a try. He looked really fast and electric. I've actually spoken to Andrew Johns just off air, talking about the Knights. And, we've been speaking about David Armstrong for a while now. Saw glimpses of him playing in the New South Wales Cup, and Joey's always asked me, what do you think of him? And he's looked exactly how he played in his debut game. He looks sharp and dangerous on his feet. He looks nice and fast, and he's courageous too. Just to score that try that he scored, the hole certainly opened up. But Jesse Bromwich is coming from the inside. You've got to accelerate into that space, and he did a really good job. Obviously, filling some big boots in Kalyn Ponga, but. The Knights, they've showed they're going to fight for their season, and they lost their captain and their star player for the best part of 3 months, and they've started off on a really good note, and they've said, nah, we're going to keep fighting for this season.
And just on Ponga, Bill, that this Lisfranc injury, I wasn't familiar with what it was, but it sounds like a nasty injury to do. Kalyn's had surgery. He's going to miss the Origin series. Have you reached out to him at all? Have you spoken to Kalyn on how he's doing?
There's certain injuries that you get concerned about, and whenever it's a foot injury, it's never a short term thing. The Lisfranc, I've heard about Lisfranc for a while now, and it's like a bone. There's bones in your foot, and I think there's ligaments inside in between those bones that tear, and it requires surgery, requires a plate put in, and it's a good 2-3 months recovery from that injury. And I spoke to Kalyn last week actually, and he was really dejected. He obviously what he went through last year, he missed a whole chunk of the season with some concussion issues, and and then this now. It's tough for players because they give everything for their career. They put everything into playing footy. They wake up in the morning, and their decisions around what's going to help them play the best on the weekend. And they go through a grueling pre-season, and everything is to play footy and play in the big games. And unfortunately for Kalyn, he's going to miss the next 3 months, which is a pretty big period for Queensland, which are big games that I know Kalyn wants to be a part of. So to hear his disappointment in his voice, I was quite expecting it.
Yeah, terrible news for Kalyn Ponga. While we're talking Origin, a story today, Billy, in relation to Latrell Mitchell. Admittedly, he is a New South Welshman. You're the coach of Queensland, so I don't know whether you want to answer this one, but there's talk that he might rule himself out of Origin contention to focus his time more on club football with South Sydney. What are your thoughts on his form? I know he's out through suspension at the moment. And this talk about him potentially returning to South Sydney, not at fullback, but playing in the centres.
Yeah, it's obviously a personal decision for Latrell. This doesn't happen very often. I don't think. I can't remember anyone sort of ruling themselves out of state of origin without being injured. Yeah, look, it's a tough one. Obviously, he's had a bit of time on the sidelines, Latrell, and things are going through his mind and what he wants to do, with his career and with his season, and he probably feels that he owes South Sydney something. So, we all love seeing Latrell play good footy. He's smiling out on the field, and he will certainly make a difference when he comes back for South Sydney, no matter what number he wears on his back. And I'm sure he can't wait for that opportunity to get back and play in the red and green. And who knows what happens after that, but if that's the decision he makes, that's obviously a personal one to him.
While we're on South Sydney, board meeting tomorrow involving the Rabbitohs board. They'll obviously sit down and decide on the future of Jason Demetriou, the coach. Brad Arthur, some are suggesting he's on borrowed time at the Eels. No one likes seeing people lose their job. It's the reality, though, of the coaching game that you're now experiencing, but a different level at origin level. Your thoughts on Brad and Jason and potentially them being shown the door by their respective clubs?
Yeah, when you're in a position like a coach or a board member or a CEO, when you're in those positions and the team aren't travelling well, or they're not playing well, or no one's performing to their optimal, you need change. And that's not necessarily change in personnel. That could be change in actions, change in habits, change in a program, but there needs to be some sort of change. And those people in power have to decide what change is required to see some growth in where they're sitting. So that's what the conversations will be in those boardrooms when it comes to the coaches, whether the change of the coach is the right decision, because they'll be held accountable for their decision. Whether that's the change of the coach, whether it's the change of some players, whether it's the change of actions within the program. So, yeah, it's not always necessarily the change of the person. It could be the change of something else. But, when you're in a position like South Sydney, like Parramatta, there needs to be some sort of change. And how they get that change, there's many ways to get that.
I was in a commentary box alongside the Parramatta coach on Friday night at Brookvale, Billy, and you know that there's not too much in between those walls, so you can hear everything that goes on. I said in the call there was an act of stupidity from Micah Sivo, who pulled off this great tackle and then followed it up with that stupid act of using his forearm and his elbow. Gave away a penalty when I think they were trailing by 2 points. They were still in the game, and you just heard this massive thud on the desk from Brad Arthur. And I suppose you could say the same with Sivo Milne for that cannonball tackle in the game against the Melbourne Storm. Just two, do you use the word grubby acts, stupid acts on a football field that they're just not called for?
Frustration, that's probably another word that comes to mind. And you look at Latrell Mitchell, he's sitting on the sideline for 3 weeks for frustration. And that's exactly what it is. When you're not playing your best and your team's not performing well, there's a lot of pressure around your club and your position. There's a lot of frustration in players. And look, the Micah Sivo stuff, 15 years ago when I was playing, that happened every tackle. And now you just can't do it. Does it hurt anyone? No. I've never been hurt by an elbow like that. Ruben Garrick wouldn't have a mark on him. But I tell you who it did hurt. It hurt his teammates, it hurt his coach, and it hurt his club. That's who it hurts. The Sivo Milne one was a little bit more dangerous. I thought that that looked really ugly, and there was intent in and around that to hurt someone. So it all comes back to frustration and handling that frustration. With Micah Sivo, his team were in the game. I think they were within 2 points, of the Manly Seagulls, and they were a real chance of coming home and winning the game. But as soon as he went off the field, it's hard to play with 13 men in this game. It's near impossible with 12.
The Manly Seagulls are a club that are going along okay. A third straight sellout at Brookvale. We know they really lift when they play at Brookvale. The new Prince of Brookie, no disrespect to Brett Stewart, Tom Trbojevic scored probably one of the easiest tries he'll ever score in his rugby league career. But I don't know what the television man of the match was, but on radio we gave it to Ruben Garrick, who had a wow of a game.
They're a team. They're a team that like to use the football. They're well balanced. They're really dangerous. Obviously, Tom Trbojevic is front and centre in their attack, but they're a really dangerous football team, and I think if they continue to improve, in particular around the cycle and the defensive side of the game, I think they can be a top 4 team. The health of their star players is going to be a real factor with them, because we've seen when Tom has gone out through injury in the past, their season has certainly gone downhill, but they're playing exceptional at the moment. They're not playing consistently great, but they're still getting the job done. So, no, they're a footy team, and like you said, off the field, they're doing some great things too. To have a sellout at Brookvale Oval for 3 consecutive games, that's a great feat for the area. They're obviously getting right behind their team, and the team are doing something right for the community as well. They're representing them in the right way.
Next time you're there for television and I'm there for radio, I'm going to get you Fritz's Wiener. They sell Fritz's Wieners at Brookvale Oval. Mate, they are beautiful. I said on Friday night, this could be dangerous. I've got to call the football. Nothing worse than getting a wiener stuck in your throat. But I'm telling you.
Where is this going?
They are beautiful. So I'm getting you a Fritz's Wiener at Brookvale next time we're there. Can we move to the West Tigers quickly?
I'll be there in round 12. I know that. I don't know if I'll be there any sooner, but I'll definitely be there in round 12. That'll be the Melbourne Storm, so make sure you don't say it's mine, because they might put something else in it as well.
Of course. I'll just get you one and say, oh, no, it's just for the continuous call team. Let's move to the Tigers. They're building a solid roster for next year. Jerome Luai is going to make the move from Penrith. Sania Taruva is going to make the move with him. Gee whiz, Benji Marshall working his magic and obviously enticing some superstars of the game to make the move to the Tigers.
Yeah, it's exciting. Sunia Taruva, obviously the Rookie of the Year last year, he brings a whole heap to the game. Now more than ever, the wingers bring so much to the game. They're not just try scorers, which Sunia Taruva is a wonderful try scorer, but I believe he does his best work up the other end of the field. He brings it out of trouble. We saw Brian Toto make, 21 tackle breaks on the weekend. He made more post-contact meters than some of his teammates, and that's not disrespect to his teammates. It was just incredible by Brian. And, Sunny is a great pickup. I think he's a wonderful player. He's only young. And to get someone like that at the Tigers, they're certainly building a team there. If we see some growth in Lachlan Galvin and these young guys coming through the Tigers, you put some experience and some classy players around them, they're not too far off. And, if you're a Tigers fan, I'd be getting pretty excited.
Can we talk about the bunker? I don't think we've spoken about the bunker much this year on your podcast, Billy. The disallowed try to Appy Coruscant, I was throwing things at the TV. I thought, really? What did you think?
I thought they got it right.
He didn't lose possession, did he?
Did he?
Oh, I don't think so.
Did he lose possession?
He gripped the ball and put it down.
Did he re-grip the ball before planting it? Just a question. Did he lose possession? Number one, Mark, did he lose possession?
Yes, okay.
Did he re-grip the ball before planting it down? I've no doubt, like he grounded the ball, but they're the rules. They're the rules. Like, I get it. It looked like a try in real time. It looked like a try. I thought it was a try. I was surprised that they brought it back, but that's their job. Their job is to look at that with detail and get it right. At the end of the day, I felt they got it right.
We're leading into an Origin series. Are you just sucking up to the referees here, or what?
No. I'm just honest. I'm just
Fair
honest.
Enough.
And
well, you're right, though. Rules are rules.
That's how I see it.
Rules are rules.
Yeah.
Yes, the Billy Slater Podcast. Thanks to Ram Trucks, we have the Billy M Awards. I feel like we need some sort of grand opener and music to associate with this, such as the prestige. Most impressive team from round 8, Billy. Which team caught your eye?
Look, I'd love to say the Titans, but they weren't the most impressive team. Like, it was a fantastic win against the Warriors, but I thought the most impressive team for me were the Roosters. The Roosters, they really turned it on Anzac Day up against their traditional rivals in the Dragons, and they actually went down 4-0 in the opening couple of minutes. Jaden Sewer scored a wonderful try for the Dragons, but then they fought their way back, and little Sammy Walker, he was the star of the show. He had the ball on a string when he was kicking, and great little kicking game. He's got a real unique style, and I just thought the Roosters were the team of the round.
Do you invite people into your Queensland Origin camp? The reason I asked that question is Shane Flanagan invited Mark Piggy Riddell into camp with the Dragons leading up to the Anzac Day game, just to inspire the team, talk about his experience playing on Anzac Day. I spoke to Coach Flanagan over the weekend. He tells me that Piggy did his best work at the buffet and on the beers. Yeah. And unlike the footballers of today, you have to be a little bit more professional and watch what you eat and what you drink. So we're blaming Piggy for the Dragons' defeat
it's not a good result, is it, for Piggy?
Oh, the pig. What about the most impressive player? Who impressed you on the weekend, Bill?
There were a number of players. I thought Cameron Munster was probably the most impressive player. It was his third game back from injury. Only played 3 this year, and he had the ball on a string as well. 4 try assists and 1 try. Played his part in the Melbourne Storm victory over the Bunnies, and I thought he was wonderful. So plays his 200th game this week against the Gold Coast Titans, Cameron Munster. So one of the experienced players in the Melbourne Storm team now, and in some form.
While we're talking about milestones, Damien Cook. He joined us on the radio on Saturday for a gibber of a Saturday afternoon. Fantastic fella. He plays his 200th game on Thursday night for South Sydney. So good luck to Cookie in game number 200 in the NRL on Thursday for South Sydney. We move to the listener questions. Keep them coming. Billy Slater Podcast at 9.com.au. First one comes from Nate. I don't think it's Nate Miles, but it's Nate anyway. He says, Billy, last week Darren Lockyer floated the idea of having Kalyn Ponga in the Queensland camp to give advice to guys like Reece Walsh, etc. Is that something you would consider as the coach?
Yeah, look, I haven't really thought about that, to be honest. I think Kalyn's priority is probably, to get his injury right and get himself, back playing football. Look, it's certainly been done before. I've actually even done it before as a player, gone into Origin camp and helped out where I could. We probably wouldn't go down that path this year, but it's certainly something to think about for sure.
G'day, Bill. This one from George. How much belief and confidence will the Titans get from that win in New Zealand? It's been a tough couple of months, but is that the turning point for the Gold Coast?
Well, it's belief and confidence, but it's also just a release of pressure, and it just allows you to relax and play your footy. It's like when you're in a game and it's 4-4, and then you score a try and you go up 10-4. It just allows you to relax a little bit and then just get on with your footy and play your footy without that pressure of the scoreboard. So now they've got that win on the board. They've got that monkey off the back. They can just play their football, and they got a really tough one against the Melbourne Storm this week, and then I think they go Cowboys and Newcastle Knights. So a good opportunity for them to go on a run if they can get over the Melbourne Storm this week. That'll be the tough one.
2 great questions. Let's follow it up with a third. This one from Blake. Hi, Billy. Can you tell us a bit about Dale Finucane? What a career he's had. What kind of person is he on and off the field? I've only ever heard good things about him. That one from Blake.
Yeah, you'll be searching far and wide, Blake, to find a bad word about Dale Finucane. He's one of the real good guys in our game. He's a great fella, actually. A real good teammate, and one of the players that, look, everyone strives to be the player that their teammates want to play for or play with. And Dale, I don't know if any player actually typifies that quote better than Dale Finucane. He wouldn't have a teammate that he's played with, whether it be the Bulldogs, Storm, Cronulla Sharks, New South Wales Country. Like there wouldn't be a player that wouldn't love playing with Dale Finucane, because he just does all the team things really well, and he's such an intense guy. Like I remember going out to training, and as soon as everyone's putting their boots on, a bit relaxed, and as soon as Dale walks onto the field, he sprints across the other side of the field, touches the sideline, and sprints back. You knew Dale was ready to go. He was his preparation was as elite as anyone. So congratulations to him on his career. What a wonderful player. He's such a high achiever in our game, and he has earned everything that he's got. So obviously disappointing for him to go out prematurely, but I think it's a good decision from him, and obviously he's exhausted all opportunities to continue playing. But for him to go out in a space where he is still healthy, I think that's a great decision and a great thing for him.
One of the genuine hard men of rugby league. I remember hosting a show from the NRL launch a few years ago, and I was in one room and the auditorium was in the other room, and I heard this voice, this singer in the next room, and I thought, sounds like a voice of an angel. I went next door, it was Dale Finucane, this big, hard rugby league man with the voice of an angel. He can perform
Incredible.
too, Bill.
He is a wonderful musician. Look, he absolutely loves Ed Sheeran. Ed Sheeran was playing down here, this must have been 6 years ago or something. Ed Sheeran was playing at Amy Park. He was playing on the Friday and the Sunday night. Anyway, Dale went on the Friday night because he was a massive fan. And then I was actually going with my wife on the Sunday night, and we turned up there and we were walking into Amy Park, and we saw Dale out the front. And I was like, "What are you doing here? Didn't you go on Friday night?" He goes, "Yeah, I went Friday night, but I'm just sitting out the front, see if there's any tickets available for tonight." So he's but a wonderful musician. Like he's sung at the Dally Ams, he's sung at a few NRL functions, and like he's incredible. He's got this husky, real rusty voice. But a real talented musician as well. So maybe we'll see him doing a few gigs here and there. Now he's retired. Down
at Northies one Sunday Arvo, now that he's retiring from the game. Good luck to him, Dale Finucane. Billy Slater Podcast at 9.com.au if you want to send through your questions, and we'll pose those questions to the great man next week on the podcast. Billy, let's finish up with a look ahead to round 9. Rabbitohs Panthers Thursday night. Broncos Roosters should be a beauty. Bulldogs taking on the West Tigers, and the Sharks and the Dragons on Sunday afternoon down there in the Shire, a local derby to wrap up the round on Sunday. Some good games to look forward to.
Yeah, some beauties. I'm looking forward to a few of the early games. Obviously, the Panthers, Nathan Cleary with his second game back, he'll be better for the run up there in Townsville. That Broncos-Roosters game, that's going to be a beauty. The Roosters in red-hot form, and the Broncos have just been ticking along nicely. They've had a few injuries, although Payne Haas was exceptional coming back against the Tigers last week, and I just feel that the Broncos up there at Suncorp Stadium, they're going to be ready for the Roosters. This will be a really important preparation week for them because the Roosters have got some star power in their back line, and they're playing exceptional at the moment. So that's going to be a high-quality game. That'll be Friday night, live and free on 9. Beauty.
Great stuff. All right, Billy. Well, that's another podcast for round 8 of the Telstra Premiership. I'll let you go and circle the calendar for your next game at Brookvale, and you look forward to Fritz's Wiener down the track down there at Brookvale Oval. Thank you, great man. We'll catch you next week.
Beaches. See you, mate.
See you, mate. There he is. Billy Slater on the Billy Slater Podcast. We do it, of course, thanks to Ram Trucks. Enjoy your footy in round 9 of the Telstra Premiership.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights. Action. 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus Podcast. Get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour. Grab a seat on the couch for that. And, of course, my favourite, Freddie and the Owner.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm. Subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.